about 2.5 times more likely to be hospitalized and about 1.5 times more likely to be admitted to the intensive care unit at some time in your hospitalization. And so this is the difference between the Black patient population and other patient populations. Now, if we look at this then from a distribution point of view, so this is the demographic distribution. So in the St. Louis Metropolitan statistical area, it's around 19% African American. So as you can see, we tested around 25% of the African American population. And of that population, it's around 50% that test positive for COVID in the African American population, and about 50% that's white. However, the white community is much larger than the Black community, so you can see the discrepancy between testing positive between the two different communities. And so as we move along, we're looking here now at the positivity and the admitted patients. So if you're testing positive, about 60% of those patients are going to be admitted in the African American population, and around 40% of the non-African American population get admitted to the hospital. So admitted at a slightly higher rate, the Black population is than the non-Black population. And then again, moving on to some of the other metrics that we routinely report on. So if you look at these statistics now, around, like I said, you're more likely to be admitted to the intensive care unit, and that plays out at around 60% as well. The good news is that the mortality rate is there's really no difference between patients that are admitted into the hospital. And so as you can see on this graph here, it's around 50% Black and 50% non-Black. So the takeaway from these slides, though, is really that difference in the patient population and the positivity rate. Because even though the mortality is about the same, at the end of the day, it's more Black lives that we're losing because of that rate of positivity. So to put it another way, when we look at it as a population, even though the St. Louis Metropolitan statistical area makes up around 19% of the population, the death rate, which is a rate that we use as deaths per 100,000 people in the population, is around 47 for the Black community. And it's around 13 for the non-Black community. And again, this is the hospitalized patient population. So there's different death rates that you'll see both on the St. Louis City Health Department website and the County Health Department website. And that's because we're looking at different populations. Of course, we're looking at the hospitalized population, and we're also looking at the entire statistical area. So not just the city's population, not just the county's population, but the population for the entire area. And so, again, this tells a story that we've said before, that COVID disproportionately affects the Black community much more than the non-Black community. And we've finally been able to generate some numbers in order to show that discrepancy. So moving on from here, let's move on to the data that we report daily. So as you can see, there's a chart here showing our hospital admissions, and it's the data that we show every day, and it continues to show progress. And the daily trend has been going down, which is good news. Today we report 5 new COVID admissions, bringing our rolling average to 15, the same as it was on Friday when we last spoke. So we saw a little bit of fluctuation over the weekend, which we expect to see. A reminder that the data is an average of the past 7 days with a 2-day lag, but we follow the trend line. We don't really follow those fluctuations day to day. We look at them, but we follow more the trend line than we do the day-to-day fluctuations. So that's good news. And then next, of course, is our hospitalization rolling average. So our hospitalization numbers continue to show progress as well. So again, this is our hospital census for COVID and patients under investigation, so patients that are suspected as COVID as well. Our rolling average today is 251, and that continues to decline. And so overall, our hospital census decreased too. Today it's at 246, and we'd like to see those trends continue, and we'd like them to stay low. So getting to our daily numbers here, so as I mentioned before, 246 hospitalizations today of confirmed COVID or suspected COVID patients. We have 66 confirmed COVID and suspected COVID patients in our intensive care unit. And we have 42 confirmed COVID or suspected COVID patients on our ventilators today. And again, onto our good news slide for the day. We had 9 patients that were discharged yesterday from our hospitals, 9 COVID patients that were discharged yesterday from our hospital, bringing our cumulative total to 2,581 since we started collecting our numbers with our first COVID patient in the region. And again, this is a tribute to all the hard work that our healthcare workers are doing, providing care for these patients so they get better and are able to go home to their families. So thank you all to our healthcare workers. So in conclusion, again, I wanted to recognize the progress that our region has made in keeping the right measures in place and helping to prevent spread while we continue to gradually reopen our economy. We'll continue to keep a really close eye on our data. We'll continue to share what we learn from our data with the community. And right now, we'd be happy to answer any questions that we have from the media. So thank you.
Should we be concerned that some of these numbers seem to be rising more than they are falling? Are these fluctuations worrisome, or should we expect to see these?
So we should expect to see the fluctuations. Now, again, as I had mentioned before, we don't really pay close attention to the day-to-day. I mean, we look at them, but we are more concerned with that rolling average because that tells us, it reduces the noise and helps smooth things out to see what the trends are. And we continue to trend in the right direction, which is a good thing. Once you get down into the lower numbers, which is where we are right now, I mean, today we had daily admissions of 5, and we can't get much lower than that. When we see those fluctuations go up and down, it can skew sort of that average once you get to those lower numbers. but we're cautiously optimistic about the low numbers that we've been keeping. We know we'll probably never be at 0, at least until vaccine comes or until there's herd immunity. And so we're always sort of going to be fluctuating up and down with our admission numbers, just depending upon how much spread is going on in the community, what people are being affected, are they sick enough to be admitted to the hospital. All those different things really play into that number.
Mayor Cruzen said today that the city is not requiring masks to be worn at gyms and fitness centers, though those centers may require them independently. Why is the city not requiring masks while working out, though individuals may be breathing heavy as they work out?
Well, I can't answer specifically to the city's requirements, so I'll talk a little bit about how do you decrease probability of infection, and that, of course, is wearing masks. So I can understand the challenge of wearing a mask while working out. Certainly, if you're breathing heavily, it can feel suffocating and inhibit a little bit of airflow when you're working out. However, the other things to consider are, if you're breathing heavily, you're also exhaling more or more forcefully than if you're not, and that of course can produce more aerosol and farther travel. And so those are the things that you're concerned about probability of transmission. And so I would say that if it's possible and you're able to work out with a mask, I would still recommend that. The other things that could potentially decrease risk of transmission, of course, are social distancing. Indoors, it's a little bit more concerning because of airflow, things like that, than it is outdoors. But those are the things that we really need to be focusing on in order to decrease that risk of transmission. So if possible, I would still recommend wearing a mask even when you're working out.
Parts of Missouri and many other states are starting to see an increase in cases. Is this something that we will eventually see here?
Well, hopefully not. So the case count is a little bit, it's sometimes difficult to explain what is going on behind the case count. So I read recently about an increase in cases in the Kansas City area. So if you were tracking the number of cases and hospitalizations and things like that, St. Louis had much more hospitalizations than the Kansas City area did. And so this may be something to do with that, where there wasn't as much penetration in the community as there was in St. Louis, and so now there is. But there could be any number of variables that are contributing to that. including the increased amount of testing going on right now. So I know that just us as a healthcare system, that we've been increasing the amount of testing that we've been doing over time as well. And so that has increased the number of positives that you find. But when we look at the data and when we look at the number of tests and compare it to the number of positives that we have, that percentage that's positive has actually come really far down. We call that the percent positive. And so although the numbers may be going up, the percent that we test that actually test positive is coming down, which is a good sign. That means that once we're sampling, we're actually finding less as a percentage. But a lot of reasons that could contribute to why cases are going up. So it's hard to speculate on that right now.
All right, thank you, Dr. Garza. That concludes the list of questions we've received from members of the media prior to and during the briefing. Thank you for tuning in.
Let me tell you what's going on. So these guys in the vehicles, let's get a little bit closer. This vehicle and those guys over there got out of the other vehicle. There's a gold store in the parking lot, and they were heading to it. And these guys came out and they said, "No, you're not."
Wow.
And he's with us. They're having a standoff here.
Oh my God.
Arguing about why they're not being allowed to break into the place. So I'm going to kind of let you listen to this.
So these are looters
Yes.
squaring off with community members holding weapons on the street.
Yes.
And where are all those cops
Now
that just drove past you?
They're 3 blocks down.
Yeah.
This is really something here to see those store owners who want to protect their own business, yet they're by a business that is so vulnerable. Okay, so that's her family telling her to go back? Yeah, Christina, go ahead.
Yes, telling her to, because the 2 vehicles, there's actually 3 vehicles, and what is happening is that they parked in front of if you see the Buy Gold sign, there's a place for it inside the parking lot, and they don't want them to go in there. They were heading that way. They did not get in, but they don't want to be told what to do, so it's a standoff. Now the officers they went down the street past us, and you can see probably the lights about 2 blocks down. But right now, they're just going to hold on. Let me put my microphone near. Let me talk to him.
Of course, you've got to be careful about some language here.
It's my family business. Stop. We're closed. We're closed. We're closed. We're closed. We're closed.
Were those guys going into the gold store?
Huh?
What, those guys? What's going on?
Dude, we're closed, bro.
Okay, they're kind of busy, but that's what we saw.
Gosh, Christina, it really just seems so scary and so dangerous there. Please be safe. But I wonder how
we're
much...
okay. I think, here come the cops. Here comes the cops. They're trying to flag them down. We're trying to flag down the cops.
Oh.
Hold on, let me flag them back here. They're driving past us.
Oh.
Stop.
It just goes to show you perhaps how overwhelmed the police department is right now.
This is one of
They have gone up and down the street. Okay, they're turning around. There they come. There they come. They just saw me.
In 3 days of surreal moments on TV, this is one of the most surreal moments we've seen. What is underway right now in Van Nuys. All right, so here come the police officers to help these community members.
The guys on the other side are in cars. All right, here they come. The guys here are trying to stop over there from looting in the cars. All right, now they're telling them, no, they're fine.
They're good.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
gosh.
No. Whoa.
Oh, my God. Joe, to your right. Come on.
He's with us.
He is with me. Press. Sir, they're... Okay, sir. They're the store owners. They were protecting the looters, sir.
Whoa.
They're protecting the stores. Their looters are over there.
Stand down for a sec, please. Relax.
You're losing your looters. They're going down that way. These are the people in the store trying to stop.
Point.
All three of them.
Okay, we're putting those in handcuffs right now.
Dude, no, they're not the
Hey,
looters.
one person talk. Where's the looter? Where's the looter? Where's the looter?
They're helping protecting this
Okay,
building.
where'd the looter go?
They were
Okay, description. Black, white, Asian.
African Americans.
Okay.
They're in a gray vehicle. The other gray vehicle is parked in front of the Buy Gold store. A group of 6 of them. 6. We have video. African.
You talk to me.
Okay.
Okay.
They have nothing.
Talk to my partner, please.
They have nothing to do.
Okay, I need you to relax and tell me. Okay.
These people were protecting
Okay,
the
I
store.
don't care about them. The looters that
You're
walked
putting
away.
them in handcuffs.
Looters that walked away. Which way did they go?
Your officers are
Okay.
following them.
Okay.
They went south.
Okay. Car. What kind?
Gray colored vehicle was
Okay.
one of them.
Is it like that or is it like that?
Like that kind of colored
like
vehicle.
that. 4-door, 2-door.
2-door.
2-door. How many people?
Between 6 and 8 African Americans.
6 and 8 African Americans. Okay. That's okay. I'm trying. I know.
And you're on live TV right
I
now.
know. I'm trying to find
wow.
out. I'm asking you stuff. If you
Yeah.
can't tell me who they are, I can't chase them.
Okay.
That's all.
Your officers are chasing them.
Okay,
That's one
good.
of them.
Okay. They're chasing them.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
So what happened is
there we go. There we go.
these
Tell me.
people are the people from the liquor store.
Okay.
They're protecting their business.
Okay,
3
that's fine,
vehicles,
that's fine.
and they live here now. 3 vehicles drove up in front of the Buy Gold, and they told them get away from that, and they started arguing about it.
Okay.
And after they started arguing about it, that's when we started flagging you
Okay.
down, and that's when they ran.
Okay.
Some of your officers went that way.
Okay.
And that's what I was trying to tell you.
What I'm trying to say is because when these things happen, I know you want to say everything, and I appreciate that, but it's like I need the brass tacks.
Yes.
How many? What?
Between
what do they
6
look
and 8,
I know.
I
And that's
think
what
I
I
told-
needed.
Mhm.
Okay. That's why I was trying to get
Okay.
upset. Okay. Because everybody's trying to help, and
I know.
understand that. But how many? Where they went? What color? And what did they look
I
like?
got
That's
it.
all
And you
was,
guys,
okay?
it's hard.
No,
I
no,
know.
I understand.
And it's
okay?
hard. Be
I'm not
safe.
trying to- Thank you.
But these people have nothing to do with that.
Okay.
A04 amendment.
I'm sorry. I saw the word that said F. I have no idea.
Senator Pinto. And I'd just like to also say, look, one of the proudest things that I have in my 33-year career is that I never fired a shot in anger. There were many situations out here in the more rural area. We deal with more things like, people trying to do suicide by cop.
Right.
But I think my training and experience in being ready has helped me in several situations because you do not have the overreaction. As we've seen in several situations in use of force that have ended up badly, especially in the metro area here, not related to the Floyd incident. You can see the officers go into a condition where they don't seem to be in control because they are so overwhelmed. So I think the only way out of that is training, and I'd like to see more force on force training, getting people used to that shock, used to things going. If we look at this situation that had just last night in St. Cloud, situation can go sideways very quickly, and thankfully no one was killed in St. Cloud last night, but that's a situation you have to be ready for on any call. So, thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, I don't think anybody could have said it better than Representative Novotny. These trainings are designed for situational awareness, using the force continuum. That's allowed. I myself have never had training where the idea was to go kill somebody. The training was designed to use the proper force to get the job done with nobody getting hurt. That's the goal of every law enforcement officer, that nobody gets hurt, not the perpetrator, not the officer. The officer wants to go to his home to his family, and if the perpetrator gets hurt, he's not going home that night because he's going to spend the next 2 days just doing the reports.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. Representative Lesh, Chair Lesh. Chair Lesh, I see your hand up. I don't know if you're muted.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know. I just took myself off mute. I don't know if anyone else had a chance to read this guy's book, but I just looked down in my bookshelf and I have it right here. It's called On Killing. It's written by Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. I read both this and On Combat when I went through infantry training. And this is the training on which this is based. And Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, who was an Army psychologist, now has these trainings in what he calls killology. And the basis of it, the fundamental basis of it is dehumanizing your opponent based upon the refusal to shoot experiences in combat through World War I, World War II, where the Army decided, the military decided to take a very different tack. That was when they moved from circle paper targets to targets that were shaped like a human, because they wanted to encourage individuals to take shots at targets that were shaped like human beings, not circles on a target. That was the entire point of it. And it worked for the military in conjunction with moving from 7.62 to 5.56, more rounds downrange, increases your lethality. The problem with transferring this to police officers is the fundamental nature of the training, which includes dehumanizing your enemy. And it's a major problem, the fact that this has infected its way into our police forces. There is no use for it in the police forces. It is a very, very different discipline. It's a different profession. In my opinion, as a soldier, it is a higher calling because it requires more self-discipline and more training and more maturity to be a good police officer than it does to be a good soldier. So I want to take strong exception to the principles and the expectation that dehumanization of your other is making our communities safer. It's not. It's been proven that it's not doing it. And I speak to it because I am well versed on this guy's writings. So I wasn't going to speak to it, but after hearing a couple others speak, I just want to take strong exception to that. It doesn't work, and that's the reason why we're asking the questions about it now.
Very well. Thank you, Representative Lesh. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question, I guess, would be for the amendment author and Mr. Chair and Representative Pinto. As I'm looking at the modify or the amendment language and what it would modify in the proposed language, can you confirm that the language of self-preservation of an officer is an officer's highest priority would still be in the language if modified?
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Representative Lucero, it should read that warrior-style training means training for peace officers that is intended to increase the peace officer's likelihood or willingness. This is to use deadly force in encounters with community members. So the language about prohibiting training that teaches that self-preservation of an officer is officer's highest priority, the language in the current bill would be taken out through this amendment. I suppose we should have our nonpartisan staff confirm that, but that's how I read it.
Are you calling on staff to?
Well, I guess maybe I'll allow Representative Lucero too if he wants to, but that's my intention, Representative Lucero.
No, that's good enough. That's good enough for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Pinto, I just wanted to confirm that language was indeed going to be removed.
And Mr. Chair and Representative Lucero, yes, under the amendment, that language is removed, and the focus is on whether it's intended to increase the likelihood or willingness to use deadly force. Correct.
And Representative Pinto, this is not removal of existing statutory language on this point. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. This is actually essentially an author's amendment by Representative Richardson to her own proposal. This is new language, and then it's amending the new language.
Very well. Representative O'Neill.
I just wanted to say that I couldn't agree more with Representative Lesh. maybe Representative Lesh and Representative Pinto could get together and kind of wordsmith this. Of course, we don't want warrior-like training, okay? That's not the point. The point is the definition. We want to make sure that we're actually capturing what we're trying to say. And Representative Lesh, you just nailed it on the head. That's what we don't want. But I don't believe that the language, either the old version or this amendment, really get to defining it the way that you just did. And you did it so eloquently. And you point out exactly what we are all trying to say is that that's what we want to get to in the words and the language. And so I don't know if maybe Representative Lesh and Representative Pinto could work and come up with a little bit tighter definition so that we actually capture what we all agree is not appropriate for our law enforcement to be doing. My son also is military, 6 years. He and I had a long conversation about rules of engagement. And the new military training is a bit different than what Representative Lesh just described, thankfully. But nonetheless, we definitely don't want the mindset of what he just said in our law enforcement. Our concern is just the words, that we are capturing what we are intending. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative O'Neill. Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think we're kind of going on a trend because Representative O'Neill, slightly different way, but did say what I was going to address. When I was looking at this warrior training, I know we're addressing the amendment specific, but since we're talking about the warrior training and hopefully out of committee, there's always a sense that we can kind of move in the right direction. I've talked to my multiple police chiefs and sheriffs, and they've kind of said, don't get rid of the warrior training, and here's why. Well, when I hear the word warrior training, I go to what Representative Lesh is saying, like, ugh. That isn't really what we want our police officers doing. And I do think that he spoke very well to the military. I understand that being former military myself. We don't want that. But if we take the intent of what my chiefs are saying, what my sheriffs are saying is don't get rid of self-defense training for my police officers. It's a really key point for them. And what I hope through this process is that we don't kind of get lost in the minutia of what the words. We need to pay attention to words. So don't misunderstand me, lawyers in the room. But I'm saying I want to make sure that we drive it to the right intent, because I don't think anyone in this room disagrees that there's going to be situations where someone in law enforcement is going to have to defend themselves, and what does that training look like? I do think warrior training probably, the words that I wrote down where they probably need to be reformed, I think they need to be redefined, perhaps, I hate to use this word, but it does come to mind, packaged differently, because I agree there's things that probably have to change in it. I haven't been through the warrior training, so I don't know the specific elements of it. But I think we need to get rid of the improper aggressive things, but we need to find a way the police officers can be trained to properly defend themselves, and that's what they're asking for. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Miller. I hear, as we talk through this, that there's this is what I'm hearing, that there's common ground to make sure that we have good, solid police officer behavior relative to this issue of the use of deadly force. I'm struck that the language, which is not in statute, the language that is in the original amendment from Representative Richardson's bill walked into that concept of teaching that self-preservation of an officer's is an officer's highest priority, and backed out of that. And I think the Pinto Amendment backs out of that for all the reasons that we've heard argued here by everyone. And so instead of walking into that particular piece, because I would imagine, but I'm not a peace officer, that there's all sorts of training that is going to work to prepare individuals, peace officers, to protect their lives. But instead of walking into that language, we're not going there. So nothing's changing in state statute right now relative to that particular issue. And what's being replaced in the proposed language, of course, is this intended to increase a peace officer's likelihood or willingness to use deadly force in encounter with community members. And so I think we're getting at the same spot. Representative Pinto, whether it's the perfect language, I do think that we're all articulating the same value and perhaps, wanting to continue to wordsmith this a little bit more. But I'll leave it to you in terms of the maker of the author, in terms of your thoughts of what I just shared.
Chair Mariani.
Hold on, Representative Johnson. I just called on Representative Pinto.
Well, I'm whatever you'd like to do, Mr. Chair. I was going to sort of sum up some thoughts, but I'm not sure if it was going to keep on going. I should maybe wait.
Why don't we go to Representative Johnson? Representative Johnson.
Chair Mariani, I do have a suggestion for the wording of it that we might want to consider. Maybe changing it to training whose goal is to dehumanize other people.
And Representative Johnson, I think that's in keeping of the spirit of what I'm hearing. It would require some more thought, I would think. Whether dehumanize, we understand that to be, I would in common language, but whether that means there will be no use of deadly force,